You want new batteries before we get started here?
No, it was working a second ago. Hang on a second.
Play a seat, sit on the floor. Admission is free, pay at the door.
Exactly. It's free to get in.
It's like the Hotel California. Never leave.
It just costs you to get out, that's what.
All right, whenever you're ready.
Alright, we'll call the meeting. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Dear Heavenly Father, be with us this evening as we do the business for the city, for the good and welfare of the people. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
This is item C, approval of agenda. This is the approved agenda for December 9th, 2024 regular planning commission meeting.
I'll move to approve the agenda.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Very good. This is citizens' comments, but we have the mayor and we have Tina. And I guess Sarah could comment too if she wants to, but Mr. Chair, at this point you can open citizens' comments.
Alright, we'll open citizens' comments.
Would you guys like to speak this evening?
I have nothing but good things to say. You guys have done a great job. Appreciate what you do.
Alright. We'll close citizens' comments.
Closing citizens' comments. This is approval of minutes. This is approval of minutes from November 13th, 2024 regular planning commission meeting.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Very good. Item F, Board of Zoning Appeals, there's none. Old business, none. New business, none. We're just going to move straight into the staff report. So this is just going to be a year in review, and then if you guys have any questions about any projects, or anything we've approved, or anything that you see in the future, or just anything in general, feel free to stop me and just say, hey, I have questions about anything. So this is what the last year looked like. So we had 5 rezonings, 3 regulation amendments, 3 site plans, 7 plats. That includes pre-plats and final plats. 2 conditional use permits, 0 special uses, 1 lot split, 4 variances, and 6 other. And that's going to be something related to like planning commissioner, chair, vice chair appointments, and things of that nature. So January was obviously the heaviest month, and then it just kind of periodically ebb and flow throughout the year. This is all the fees we've collected by month throughout the year, with the exception of December, since we're still ongoing in December. But as you can see here, we had a big spike, and then it kind of drops, and just the continual ebb and flow, and finally it starts tapering out at the end of the month as people begin to go on vacation. But we've collected a lot of fees. This has to do with permit fees, mostly for new construction we're talking about here. So permit fees, tap fees, equity fees when it comes to sewer and water. And so you can see that just kind of constant ebb and flow as we get new building permits, and just up and down, up and down. This is construction permits for commercial, new construction, I should say, so brand new builds for commercial, single family, and 2-family. We've only ever seen 1 true multifamily, and that's 3 units or greater, and that was back in 2019 for that 3-plex that we had off of Cedar. I've never processed any official multifamily permit since that one time. So technically we only have 1 multifamily permit. Hopefully we'll see some more in the future, but we've seen a lot of single family and 2-family and commercial. So once again, up and down, up and down. This spike right here, we're doing pretty good for 2024. So we've processed a total of 152 new construction permits, which is greatly exceeding all the previous years. And this is a total of all the years combined. And so 542 new construction permits over the last 6 years. So we're doing very, very well, all things considered, with construction. This is new construction valuation by year. So as you can see, 2024, we've done really well in terms of new construction. And what's interesting is you just kind of see that ebb and flow, largely correlated, I think, with interest rates, but also just in generally speaking, I think Goddard is a very desirable place because of the school district. I think we owe a lot of our growth to the school district. Nothing to say, I'm sure people like the more small town feel, they don't want to be in Wichita proper, but the school district itself is largely probably what's contributing to our residential growth. And then of course the commercial follows the residential, so that's largely what we're seeing. As long as the Goddard School District is generally perceived favorably, I think we're going to continue to see residential growth in that way. This is an interesting metric I put together. Basically what I was trying to quantify is for every new resident, what is that dollar amount per year? And so what we took is the real, and this is inflation adjusted, so I adjusted it for inflation, but what's the local sales tax dollars, which is basically means you spent in Walmart and things like that, that's local taxes, local sales taxes. What's the real compensating use tax? That's the taxes we get from Amazon sales and Best Buy sales, anything that's happening within the city limits. Excuse me. Plus, what's the new residential construction for real ad valorem, which basically just means what is the taxes that we're getting from new residential construction. So I tried to quantify all that and then divide it by my working age population, just to kind of say that, okay, if we have 200 units, one unit equals roughly 2 working age adults. So we have about 400 working age adults, and 400 times this number, which we just kind of put together, comes out to about $146,000 a year in extra dollars that the city sees, which is interesting to kind of use as a quantitative measurement for determining not just the ad valorem taxes for new development, but also the sales taxes and anything else that's coming in for revenue generation. That kind of helps us say, okay, for every new individual, working age individual, this adds an extra dollar amount, which is interesting. And that helps us kind of look at the fiscal impact of new developments. Click. There it is. Oops, I went too fast. No, that's fine. So I pulled this from MADCD. This is all of the plats that were recorded with Sedgwick County over the last 6 years by city and by unincorporated Sedgwick County. So obviously Sedgwick County has seen a lot of plats being recorded over the last 6 years. I'm happy to say that we're keeping pace with everybody else, generally speaking. And to be fair, these are all plats and replats and commercial plats. It's not just residential plats. It's like if somebody platted for commercial development or industrial development or replatted, and these are what these plats look like. For example, Arbor Creek had a replat, and so that's also included in this. But we're doing pretty well, all things considered. But we have Park City, Mays, and Goddard, but we're tracking pretty high considering that Mays and Park City both have a greater population than us. Obviously, Wichita's an outlier. But what's interesting about this is that Sedgwick County has so many plats that have been recorded over the last 6 years, because as we grow, and all of these cities as they grow, generally speaking, are incorporating chunks of Sedgwick County. And so all these plats that are happening in Sedgwick County, you end up adopting the regulations of Sedgwick County as you grow outward, because you have a development that's built or platted in the county, and then we annex it, and then perhaps it doesn't have any curb and gutter or has larger lots or things of that nature. So it's just kind of interesting to see how many plats are happening in the county that will end up taking ownership and you guys will end up regulating in the future. So granted, you're not going to regulate all 200 of them, but as we grow to the west, north, and south, all the plats that have happened in that area, if we end up annexing them, you'll have regulatory authority over them. So it's just kind of interesting to see. And from an illustrated perspective, it looks like this. So these are all the plats that have happened in the last 6 years in the surrounding area. And so you can see largely it's just going to be around the school, which is not exactly too eye-opening, because you know that people want to work in Wichita, but they don't want to necessarily live or send their kids to school in Wichita, so they tend to, all the new plats for residential, commercial, etc., they're all going to be around the outside, generally speaking. And so you see this large swing right here of platting that's happening, and then you see over here in the corner of the derby, but a lot of platting that's happening all around this area. And as you know, Goddard's growth area is going to be over here in the future. By 2035, we're anticipating to be out to here. And so as we continue to grow, you will have regulatory authority. As a planning commission, as city council, you have regulatory authority over these plats in the future, which will be really interesting to see.
So 10 years, roughly 10 years, 2035, the thought is maybe Goddard's all the way north, is that 21st?
Yeah.
Okay, oh wow.
Yeah.
How does that work? Like the city grow, like somebody would petition to be part of the city, or the
Sometimes.
city or the city say, hey, I want to be part of this now?
Sometimes they do and sometimes they don't. So there's two types of annexations. All the gray, and that's a good question. So all the gray, for example, like the colors stand out, these are all cities, and all the gray is unincorporated. So technically you can look at it as unincorporated and incorporated. So a city is incorporated, they have their own charter, they have their own zoning regulations, their own planning commission, their own council. And then you have unincorporated Sedgwick County, which is controlled and now is in partnership with Wichita. So now they're kind of one and the same. But as we grow and we hit new tracts of land, let's say that a farmer doesn't want to farm anymore and wants to sell his land to a developer, and that developer says, okay, you know, I want to buy your land, so then they buy the land. Usually they petition the city because they want city services like water, sewer, streets, curb and gutter. It just makes the development more appealing to sell lots and build homes and things of that nature. So normally you'll see that happen. That's like 99% of the time. Of that, well, it's like 95% of them. Sometimes you'll see somebody like we've annexed over here. So Maple Tree is like right here. Here's Maple Tree. And right next to it, there's like one small house. That gentleman, they wanted to, and his wife, they wanted to annex because they didn't want to have well water anymore. They wanted city water. And they have a septic tank, and at some point when we have sewer up there, they want to connect to the sewer. But right now they just didn't want to deal with well water anymore. They wanted to have city water. And they wanted to kind of be in the city, because if you're in the city, a bank, if you're in the county and you want to sell your house, typically a bank says, I want a lagoon inspection, or I want a septic tank inspection, or I want a water well inspection before you can sell your house. And somebody will come out, a private inspector will come out and inspect that, and they'll say, okay, your septic tank is 15 years old, you have to bring it up to code. And then you, of course, say, I'm trying to sell my house, how much does it cost to bring it up to code? And they say $15,000. And so they go, hey, city, can you annex me really fast, right? Or provide me service really fast. And, you know, sometimes we can and sometimes we can't. You know, we've had multiple people reach out there like half a mile away, and we're like, we're not going to run a sewer for half a mile for one house. You know, it's just not possible. So, but a lot of people, as they continue to grow and they turn around to sell their house, this is happens. It's very common that that happens. The other way that it happens is as we grow, the county doesn't want to maintain some of these roads, or they don't want to provide services to people that are surrounded by a municipality. And what we will see is that sometimes the city will say, we're going to unilaterally annex somebody, and that means without your permission. So we'll come in and say, hey, we're growing this way, we're surrounding you on multiple sides, we have sewer and water lines, it's advantageous for you if you want to be annexed. Usually we try to negotiate. If they don't want to negotiate, usually, sometimes it just depends on who's on council, but we can say, unfortunately for you, we're going to unilaterally annex you because it makes more sense for the city, and it makes more sense for the county, and it makes more sense for the township if those property owners are in the city. So that's a unilateral annexation, means without your consent. Most of the time we're seeing petitions to be annexed into the city because it makes sense economically for developers and for private property owners, but it just kind of depends on the situation. But that is all I have. So if you guys don't have any questions, you can open it up, planning commissioner comments, thoughts about the future, anything in general, project related, or anything at all, feel free to ask.
Latest on Casey's.
We're good. So right now the engineers are just hashing it out a little bit, but we're doing good. We have the money. Casey's engineer had some general questions about the slope and stormwater runoff, and Baughman's engineer and our engineer are circling wagons to make sure that we all agree on stormwater runoff and implementation of the streets. So right now, water and sewer looks good. It's just kind of making sure that the street with the sidewalk and the storm drains and everything else that they're proposing is going to capture adequate stormwater detention. Not detention, but stormwater runoff, from what I understand. Right now, the engineers, it's looking pretty good. So as soon as they're done and they stamp it, then we can bid the project, and then we can see construction going over there. And hopefully we'll get a building permit shortly thereafter. It's a small project, so I imagine it'll get done pretty fast. Unless, you know, just snows a bunch and slog down. Yeah, it's been relatively warm the last couple of years, so. But yeah, it's a short project, so hopefully the building permit will get pulled. They've already gone through MABCD, so it's approved technically. You guys have seen the site plan, so as soon as the street, sewer, and water are in place, we can get a building permit done, go vertical.
So is it you mentioned, will it be a city project, building the?
The Casey's?
Yeah.
So that's a good question. Basically, when you have public infrastructure, the city will finance that through special assessments. And so with Casey's, there's no difference. Like residential, we do the same thing. Commercial, we do the same thing. So if somebody like commercial projects, like, hey, I want you to bring street, sewer, water, storm, all of that, and I want you to petition, like I want to petition for that and be assessed for that, then we'll go through that process. And so we will review it. We'll have our city engineer review what their engineer is proposing to make sure it meets all the code and standards. We'll borrow that money through bonding, and then we will bid the project and have contractors bid on it, and then we will award a low bid with the council, and if council's okay with the low bidder, then they'll award the low bid, and then we'll have what's called a pre-con or pre-construction date, and we'll meet with the contractor, the winner of the low bid, and say, when are you going to start? And when do you anticipate that you're going to finish? And then we usually allow them to have 30 weather days in case it rains or anything else, and then they knock it out, and we assess them, the property owner, for the costs, including my time, and including time that's taken up by our city attorney or our bond attorney or anybody of that nature, and we assess them for that cost. Yes, we get a better rate than most people. So a developer might get, for example, 6-7% to borrow $1 million, and we get 3.5%, 4% to borrow $1 million. So it's a lot more cost effective.
You anticipating this January to also be a busy month? You mentioned, I think last year, well, 2024, January had the most agenda items. Are you thinking January 2025 will be similar to a lot of agenda items?
Where were my permits?
You were there, right there.
There it is, yeah. I don't know, maybe. That was a lot for January. I think it's because we had a lot of planning done. I think we have a lot of planning done now, but the planning's been done, and now they have to put in the street and the storm and the sewer and all that. So I imagine once all that's put in, it's just, it's kind of usually like you guys, excuse me, you'll see a developer come forward and be like, hey, I have land, I want to rezone. So you guys see the rezoning, and then they're like, okay, we approve rezoning, and then you guys will see the plat. It takes, 6, might take another, not 6 months, well, sometimes, yeah, so maybe, let's say 3 months. So you'll see rezoning, and then 3 months later, you see the plat, and then a month after that, you'll see the final plat. And then we do all the bidding and the financing and all that. And then a year later, you start seeing them put in the streets and the curb and gutter. It just takes a long time. And then you see the permits get pulled. Once the streets are in, then you see the permits. So it's just kind of like, usually it's like overlapping development trends. And so it just happens that month we had a lot of stuff that was already put in place, and then permits got pulled. So I don't think January, since we have plats that have been approved, we'll probably continue to see permits being pulled, but we're going to see a big spike, I would say, probably in the middle of next year, because that's when we have 2 big developments coming online, I think about that time, weather permitting, 167 and 23rd. If all the infrastructure of those 2 developments are in place, then you'll just see a huge spike in permits because they'll start pulling a lot of building permits. Big Arm's on their way down, they have more permits, so you'll probably see that maybe a little bit in January. Trails End, they're doing pretty good. Bridgewater Maple, they're still doing pretty good. So probably just kind of see a little bit, and you'll see a spike in the summer, especially when things dry out. But yeah. Also depends on rates. If rates drop, you'll see a lot more building permits too. So we'll see how that works.
Sorry.
No, you were go ahead.
Do you think Steven's known questions?
Yeah. I saw that the potential Goddard Apartments, part of the Stevens development. Is that going to require a zoning change or anything, or is that land already zoned for?
No, back in 2020 or 2021, and everything starts after 6 years. It all kind of runs together. 2020, 2021, might have even been 2022. We were talking about rezonings and how combative they are. You haven't seen as much of them yet, but some of you guys have. Obviously, Mr. Parks has has weathered the storm many, many times, but rezonings are really combative, and some of the factors for why rezonings are so combative is because people don't necessarily want to be next to multifamily or two-family, and so we were asking ourselves, well, how can we introduce multifamily in a way that was less intrusive and for lack of a better term, I don't necessarily think they're completely intrusive, but how is it less intrusive for somebody's living space to introduce multifamily? And so we changed the zoning classifications for general business or commercial to allow multifamily because it seemed more acceptable to introduce apartments and condos in an area next to like a Walmart or baseball diamonds or a Genesis as opposed to somebody's backyard. Granted, it's impossible to, there's so much single family around here, it's almost impossible to rezone something without offending somebody. But it seemed easier if we introduced apartments in an area that's already zoned commercial. That's the rationale. Also, multifamily and density in general helps support the commercial. And so if you have apartments right next to the sandbox, well then you have more people that can patronize that business and it helps support the businesses. Not only that, but it helps support the businesses on Main Street because they're in close proximity. So most people, generally speaking, would be accepting of walking a quarter mile. So they're a quarter mile on Main Street, which means that Main Street should, by proxy, be able to benefit from that density increase. That's some of the justification behind it, but that's why. So in a commercial district, you have what's called by right zoning for an apartment complex. So they don't need to go through a rezoning process. I hope that answers that question.
183rd and Kellogg?
Yes, 183rd and 54, we're going to be putting in turn lanes. So 100% paid by the state for construction, design, engineering, and field services we're going to pay out of pocket, but the construction cost up to $1 million is going to be paid by the state to put in turn lanes, which north side and south side. North side will have more turn lanes with the east and west and a straight. South side is going to have a right turn lane. So when you're trying to head north on 183rd and you have people cutting on your right side to get into the dirt to get onto 54 and head east, now there'll be a turn lane there, which will help. Southbound on 183rd, you'll be able to queue up. I don't know how long the queue is, so don't quote me on that, but you'll be able to queue up to head east and to head west and to head straight, which should help, in theory, mitigate high traffic areas when school's in session.
Good how they did that.
Yes, we did that, and did we do that? Gosh, yes, we did that. Thank you. And we've awarded a low bidder, and we're going to start construction as soon as I think we've already had a pre-con. So, Tina, did we have a pre-con?
No.
I lied about
No,
that.
not yet.
We will have a pre-con.
Yeah, we don't have a start date yet.
Please scratch that from the record. Yeah, thank you, Tina. That's why she's here. Anything else? What would you guys like to see in the future? Any other reporting, projects, any types of land uses? If you have questions about anything that you'd like to see more of, more periodically, I can introduce a general city planner report or statistics.
I've heard talk a few times about an updated city, not a city roadmap, but kind of the, the updated 10-year plan. Is that in the works?
The comprehensive plan?
Yes, putting one of those together.
Yeah, so the comprehensive plan typically, it's usually about $100,000. Usually you contract with the company to do that because it's pretty intensive and it requires a lot of work, especially for me and you guys. So because they require feedback from planning commission, city council, the larger populace, and then the technical expertise of city staff and whatnot. Usually it's about $100,000 to do that. Last time I spoke with the mayor and Craig and others on it, we're thinking possibly the end of 2025, maybe 2026, we consider a revision of the comprehensive plan to kind of look at forecasting and everything else, which is good to do because that helps drive the vision of Goddard. And you can use that to say, okay, zoning wise, is this comprehensive plan show our future zoning and land use maps? Does it make sense? And so we're thinking the end of 2020, end of 2025, beginning of 2026 would be a good time for a comp plan. Well, the CIP. So we have a CIP plan as well, which is something that they're working on to kind of identify major road improvements and for introduction of new additional lanes, but also remediation of existing roads as well with the capital improvement program. There's also city buildings, potentially, which I think we've allocated some funding towards that, but I'm not sure exactly when we pull the trigger on that. Yeah.
Yes, the Garrison with water. There was, I know there's been, we've got the agreement with,
Rural Water District number 4?
yeah, but I think there was, some issue, was there piping that's gotta be installed from us to them to connect it for their work?
Yes, yeah, we have higher pressure than they do, so if we turn the valve, we would shoot through their system, we want it to go the other way. So we need a pump station and cross connection, and so that's what we're putting together right now. It's been engineered, but it hasn't been bid yet, from what I understand. Oh, Tina, that's a good question again. Nope, hasn't been bid yet, thank you, Tina.
It's been advertised.
Has it?
The pump station's been advertised.
Yeah, so it's been advertised, and so when we hire a contractor, that'll accept the plans, then we'll get that being built. So, and that means that we'll be able to supplement our existing water supply, which is good because rural water district number 4 has multiple wells and they're nowhere near capacity for them, or we're growing exponentially, and so we're generally seeing, especially during peak times during the summer, that demand on us. And so being able to tap into their water system would be really good for us. You can keep asking questions.
No, I didn't, I did.
Anything else? Questions?
If we're at the comments section, I did have a few comments.
Yeah.
So from the question section, but no, I just wanted this is my first. I've only been on here not quite a year. Just wanted to thank you, Micah, for all your reports and the agendas. I've definitely learned a lot, and wanted to thank the city, the city council, and the mayor for placing me on this committee. It's been a really good learning experience, and look forward to working with you all in the future and doing that, hopefully better the city.
Yeah, so if you guys have anything else you want to talk about, any other comments? Thoughts? Okay, well, in the new year, January 13th, 2025, we'll be looking at some subdivision regulation changes. We'll be looking at appointing a chair and vice chair. We do it every year. So every year you can vote on the chair and vice chair for that year. And then you can 2026, a new chair and vice chair, 2027, etc. But if there's no other questions, we'll move on. Okay.
All right. Looking for a motion?
Move to adjourn.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Merry Christmas. Happy New Year.